Hello there. Okay, good morning everybody. It is 8:55 a.m. on May 21st, 2021. So today we're going to be talking about the FBI DHS Strategic Intelligence Assessment and Data on Domestic Terrorism. This report came out in this month, May 2021, earlier this month, and I finally gotten around to read it. So let's get into this. So what is this? All right. So this is a report that the FBI and the DHS do. FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Okay. Um, Here it says with the consultation of the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, they all produce a report containing a strategic intelligence assessment and data on domestic terrorism. Okay, and this is mandated by the National Defense Authorization Act of fiscal year 2020. Okay, so they have to do this by law. They have to make this report by law. And this specific report, specifically, will be talking about incidences of domestic terrorism in 2017, 2018, and 2019. And that's as recent as it goes. Okay, here, let's see. So, what the report does, it just kind of gives you kind of an overview of what is it, how many of these incidents were there, how do we define what counts as domestic terrorism. Also, there's a lot of explanation of bureaucracy in there, procedures, rules. So most of this report is wonky stuff. Um, really, the meat of it is like the first 10 pages. And then from page 10 to like page 28, it's just all, I don't want to say fluff, but, it's just stuff that, if you're not like a nerd like me, it won't interest you. So, let's see, where do we start? So there's going to be a lot of acronyms in this report, but the main one you want to look out for is DVE. So that is Domestic Violence Extremists. Okay, and that's kind of like a overhead, name for anybody that's conducting in domestic terrorism. So let's see. Let's move on here. I'm just going to be going through the report, seeing my notes, seeing stuff that I need to mention. Let's see. Da, 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 da. And just to give you an idea of what these two organizations are looking for is anything that is intimidating and coercing a civilian population, influencing the policy of government by intimidation or coercion, affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. What is needs to be highlighted here is that there's a fine line between free speech in accordance with the First Amendment and actually commit, like, basically, in order for you to be investigated, you have to, how do I put this? You have to show intent, although that's hard to prove, right? Show intent or commit like an actionable thing, right, of what you say in terms of DT. By the way, that's another acronym that they're going to be using in the report. I'm going to be using. DT stands for domestic terrorism. So yeah, it has to be something that we could see, and if it was thwarted, they have to have like a strong sense that this person was about to commit something, right? Or was planning, like there's evidence that they were planning to commit some kind of violent act. Okay, let's see. And just to give you an idea, just as straight from the report, in our discussion of DT threats, we use the word violent extremism to define DT threats because mere advocacy of political or social positions, political activism, use of strong rhetoric, or generalized philosophic embrace of violent tactics may not constitute violent extremism, and may be constitutionally protected. So that's kind of like what I was trying to say. Now, what is interesting here is that they kind of break down all the types of possible DVEs. Remember, domestic violence extremists. So, I mean, they have like a whole gamut of just, okay, so here we go. Racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. Animal rights, environment violent extremists. Abortion-related violent extremists. Anti-government, anti-authority violent extremists. And within that, there's going to be subsections, right? There's going to be militia violent extremists, anarchist violent extremists, sovereign citizen violent extremists. So for that, we're going to get back to that because I've never, heard of sovereign citizen violent extremists. So I'm just like, wait, what the hell is that? And then they have all other domestic terrorism threats. I mean, this pretty much covers everything. Like, I'm so surprised about how, not specific, but I mean, anybody, I have to watch what I say here, but this covers people that are just, I don't know. I feel like it's just too easy to put anybody in any one of these categories, right? So yeah, and we'll get into, I don't want to get into these categories that much, so we could just move on. So let's start with that sovereign citizen violent extremist, because I'm like, what the hell is that, right? And over here they say sovereign citizen. This is on a footnote on page 6. So if you guys, just to let you know, like, this report, you could get it, this is publicly available, right? So it says sovereign citizens are U.S. citizens who claim to have special knowledge or heritage that renders them immune from government authority and laws. So that doesn't tell me anything. When I first read that, I was like, what the hell does that mean? So basically, it just means people that fall under this category don't believe in the legitimacy, of the actions of the state, right, of the government, of the law enforcement arm of the government. So, that's what that means. But it's weird because it kind of intersects with another subcategory, which is the anarchist violent extremists. Let me give you the definition of what they have for that. It says these are DVEs who oppose all forms of capitalism, corporate globalization, and governing institutions, which are perceived as harmful to society. So it's possible that a sovereign citizen violent extremist may also be an anarchist violent extremist. So you see how lines can be blurred here. So, but I just want to make that distinction. Okay, let's see. They go through kind of like each year, which I'll get into later, but I'm going to be just giving you notes of interest for me. There is one thing here where they literally have like a separate name for it, and it is the Puerto Rican National Violent Extremist. And this is something, it's because this is something that happened in 2018. So basically this report has an appendix. I'm like, what the fuck? What is happening in 2018 in Puerto Rico, right, where there was some kind of DT event, domestic terrorism event, and so I was like, okay, what's going on here? And here, let me go to the appendix. So if you don't remember, there was a hurricane in 2018 in Puerto Rico, and then there was a lot of unrest because of austerity measures that the government was doing. And so people were angry. So I'm assuming it has to do with that. And sorry, I'm trying to find the. Here we go. So this is what they have for the Puerto Rican National Violent Extremists. Individuals were arrested for allegedly throwing rocks and other objects toward law enforcement officers and vandalizing property. That seems a little. I don't know why the hell this was a DT incident. I think it only because I guess they're afraid of anything that kind of takes away the power from the U.S. government from Puerto Rico, since they're that's one of their territories, so they're a little bit too sensitive about that. So I just found that interesting that they have a DT event just because of some rocks being thrown and vandalism. That's what they claim, so I don't know. You have to understand there is a classified kind of information in the background here that is not presented to the public, so we don't know everything, right? Let's see here. Okay. So I want to highlight, just to give you an idea of each year, what's happening in each year. They did give us some numbers of arrests, where they actually caught people before, for the most part, before they were able to commit any event. Why can't I find it? I don't know. Oh, here we go. So they actually have information going back from 2015, but let me, so in 2015, there were 211 arrests of DT subjects. 2016, 229. 2017, 186. 2018, 113. And 2019, 107. So that's 211, 229, 186, 113, 107. So it seems to be going down. The only outliers, the 2016, where it went up by a handful from the year prior. So, 2016 was, during the time of the election, so makes sense why there was a lot more unrest and a lot more DT incidents during that year. But I just found that to be interesting, where it just keeps going down. But from 2018, 2019, not by much, 113 arrests to 107 arrests. So, yeah, it'll be interesting once we get the numbers for 2020 and in the future 2021 to see if maybe there's going to be a plateau of like 100 arrests. So anyways, an important note of 2019 is they highlight RMVEs, racially motivated violent extremists. Primarily those advocating, this is from the report, quoting from the report. In 2019, the FBI and DHS assessed RMVEs, primarily those advocating for the superiority of the white race, likely would continue to be the most lethal DVE threat to the homeland. Okay, so within that, they talk about two things that I have never heard of, right? Because I'm not entirely well versed in this, white supremacy area. So they mention gamification and acceleration, and I'm like, what the hell is this stuff? So gamification apparently is it's kind of like a scorecard where these racially motivated violent extremists are like, okay, how many people can I kill in one day or in one setting, right? And if we kill this amount, we get an award, So it's kind of like gamifying killing people, right? Just to give you an idea here, uh, RMVEs espousing the superiority of the right race has furthered this narrative by framing previous attacks as resulting in a score, quotation score. Yeah, fatality counts in attacks are referred to as scores as the actor desires to accomplish achievements or high kill counts. So I didn't know that was happening. That's crazy. And then for acceleration, it's like this belief of like, we need to introduce a race war, right? We need to have violent killings to go back to a time where, the white race was had all the power, right? That's what accelerationism is. And they found this out through like, of RMVEs talking about these two terms by looking into the public forums, by looking into the encryption messaging apps that they use, right? So I'm like, holy shit, this is according to them, this is straight from the source, right? So that's actually pretty alarming, especially the accelerationism. That is pretty interesting. It says a belief among some neo-Nazi and/or fascist RMBEs that the current system is irreparable, without apparent political solutions, and hence violent action is needed to precipitate societal collapse to start a race war. Crazy, crazy stuff. Okay, so this is just goes on to information about what constitutes a preliminary investigation, a full investigation. An important note here is that there's no duration limit for a full FBI investigation, which I found interesting, because it's like, well, theoretically one could have a full investigation open, indefinitely. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it. One note here is that I did not know that the NCTC, so the National Counterterrorism Center, is not actively involved in preventing domestic terrorist threats. They kind of just give logistical help to DHS and FBI. So that was a little, tidbit for me, because I'm like, wait a minute, I thought they were actively involved, but they're not. They just kind of, coordinate with DHS and FBI, but it's the FBI and the DHS that are doing the bulk of the work, right? They're doing the actual investigations, the actual legwork. Another important thing here I highlighted was so there's actually like a booklet. They call it a booklet. There's actually a booklet that is for the public to kind of basically, learn how do you spot domestic terror, possible domestic terrorism or terrorists, and I'm just like, holy crap. And this is public information, right? It says it's called the Homegrown Violent Extremist Mobilization Indicators, which contains a broad list of behavioral indicators that might demonstrate an individual's likelihood of engaging in terrorist activity. The booklet was published to help law enforcement partners and the public at large recognize potentially dangerous behaviors, to identify terrorists before they conduct deadly attacks. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it's a little bit, bold to just put out something out there, knowing how people are. I'm sure they're gonna misuse this information that they get, right? Um, by the way, this booklet is published on the ODNI's public website. There's a footnote here saying that it's available in an ODNI Office of Director of National Intelligence. Okay, I think that's gonna be it for this. Let's see if there's anything else I need to highlight. Actually, yes. So there is one thing here, just to give you a sense of the scope of all this. It says the FBI was conducting approximately a thousand pending DT investigations each year for fiscal year 2017 through 2019. Just to give you an idea of how many investigations there were for each of these years. So around 1,000, they say, but they do not specifically say whether there were how many were preliminary investigations and how many were full investigations, because there is a difference there between the two, right? Where full obviously they have a lot more leeway as to what they could do to look into the possible domestic terrorist threat. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're gonna leave it off here. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. They have the appendix actually. There's like 12 pages of the appendix of just like reports, that they have to give you an idea of some of the what these stints are of domestic terrorism. Just to give you an example real quickly here of something that they thwarted, which I thought was pretty interesting. There's this guy that was a lieutenant in the United States Coast Guard, where he was sentenced for 13 years for let me see here. Unlawful possession of unregistered silencers, unlawful possession of firearms silencers, unidentified by serial number, possessions of firearms by an addict to an unlawful user of a controlled substance. Let's see. He self-identified as a white nationalist for over 30 years and in writings advocated for focused violence in order to establish a white homeland. Review of Hassan's email accounts, saved documents, text messages, and internet searches show that he was inspired by racist murderers, he stockpiled assault weapons, studied violence, and intended to exact retribution on minorities and those he considered traitors. So that would be an example of a racially motivated violent extremist. And he was arrested in February 2019. So that's just giving you an example of kind of what the FBI and DHS are kind of dealing with here. So yeah, that will be that for today. Hope you guys learned something, and I hope you guys maybe look into the report if you're really wonky like me. But other than that, you guys have a good Friday and a good weekend. Bye-bye.